So I just remember teaching that morning and then waking up 6 weeks later in Edinburgh. And I was just really dazed and confused, like, what's my mum and dad doing in the room? My dad left, came back with the surgeon, and they told me I'd come off the back wheel of the bike. I'd hit my head so hard on the ground I'd suffered a traumatic brain injury, shattered my right-hand side of my skull, which they removed, fractured my neck in 2 places, and had a 1% chance of survival. That chicken Royale, I just thought, oh, I could be training right now and be crying from how hard that training was, because tears were very common in my training, just the sheer volume and toughness that we did. I thought, no, I just miss it. I miss getting into a fight, and I just knew that from watching the Olympics, and the Olympics were going on at the same time, and seeing all these people achieving their dreams and seeing all those accepted my job and got the job for Enterprise in December for starting in February. And so I went to Enterprise with hands up. I was like, look, I've actually accepted an internship in Vietnam for 5 months. Is there any chance that you could postpone my... That's when I thought, and I just had that itch in my head. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna apply to try and do my 1 year, because it's a very difficult course to get into in Scotland because it's so popular, because you just have to do 1 year post-grad and then you can become a teacher. I thought, you know what, I'm going to give myself the opportunity, or the option.
And thanks for tuning in today. This week's episode is brought to you in conjunction with Upskilled and their mini MBA. If you want to get the skills and knowledge to help move you forward without all of the big expense, then this mini MBA with Upskilled is the right way to go. Follow the link in the show notes and you can get $500 off.
Today's guest is Steph Ingles. She's a former professional judo player, having represented Scotland and Team GB around the world, winning numerous World Cup medals and trophies. The pinnacle of her sporting career was winning Scotland's first silver medal at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games back in 2014. However, injury crushed her dream of the 2016 Rio Games. So in 2016, she went to Vietnam as an English teacher for 5 months. However, 4 months into that experience, she was involved in a horrific motorbike accident, leaving her with only a 1% chance of survival. Luckily, Steph is with us today and is well on her way to pursuing a career as a primary school teacher. Steph, welcome to the show.
Hi there, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, I know that today is very much focused on career transition from you being an elite athlete, in judo, and now how that transition to where you are now as a primary school teacher. But I've got to start with a 1% chance of survival after an injury. Now, to me, with my basic maths, if I round up 99%, that basically makes you dead. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Even 7 years on now, 2016, you have 7 years on now, it's hard to almost comprehend or get my head around it. So what had happened, we travelled by motorcycle taxi. When I was in Vietnam, that was the mode provided with, and I had to travel by, I had to wear a skirt or dress when I was teaching. So this day I had a skirt that touched the ground. My driver told me to sit side saddle on the bike. My skirt got caught in the back wheel and I came off the bike. So I just remember teaching that morning and then waking up 6 weeks later in Edinburgh. And I was just really dazed and confused, like, what's my mum and dad doing in the room? My dad left, came back with the surgeon, and they told me I'd come off the back wheel of the bike. I'd hit my head so hard on the ground I'd suffered a traumatic brain injury, shattered my right-hand side of my skull, which they removed, fractured my neck in 2 places, and had a 1% chance of survival. And then it's like, we're going to let you process that. We'll check on you later on. And I was thinking, whoa, that's a lot to take in. And like I said, even now it's just crazy. But doctors did put my recovery down to the fact I was so physically fit and strong with my sporting background and being goal driven and orientated that's what helped me make this miracle recovery is what they call it. So that's another thing supporting me to encourage as many people to be as the fittest and healthiest version they can for whatever might they encounter in their future. But yeah, it's even now the fact that I can say I almost died and wonder why that didn't happen is it blows your head, blows your mind.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I'm even hearing it. You probably saw me wincing as you described what happened. That oh, we're going to move on from that because I don't want to dwell on that too much. But that's a horrific injury, but probably something that as you've mentioned, is has helped shape certainly the way that you are today, mentally and physically.
Yeah,
After that, yeah,
yeah.
fantastic. I,
Lucky,
well,
yeah.
one of the things that it certainly makes me think of is the way you fell. Probably was down to years of training of being thrown onto crash mats as a as an elite judo athlete.
Yeah, well, that's it. Somebody caught it on video, so one of the street cameras. Um, I'm very curious and nosy, so you have a look. You can't see how you landed; you just see how I almost just slowly slinked off the bike. So maybe I did a forward. I like to think I did a forward roll break fall that I've been preparing for since I was 4 years old. But I shouldn't make jokes of it. But sometimes if you don't have a little joke, you could go the other way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, look, you mentioned there from 4 years old, judo. So it sounds like this is something that had been part of your life right from the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. I started when I was 4 with my dad. He was my very first judo coach. And they've got family videos of us when I'm in my living room at 3 years old when he's like teaching me how to throw him and just fun. And just couldn't wait to get started on the judo mat. So 4 years old, I was allowed to finally start and got hooked. First competition the week after my 8th birthday. In judo, you need to be 8 years old to fight in competition. I was lucky enough to win my first gold medal, and then it spiraled from there.
Wow, I mean that is quite amazing. So obviously, martial arts was something that your family did. Did you do many sports then growing up?
Oh yeah, I did loads of sports. I just loved any sport. So in school, if there was any after schools club or some of my other friends, I did gymnastics, hockey, basketball. I did a sport called octopus. Have you heard of that?
Never. Tell me more about that.
Nobody knows it. So octopus is hockey underwater. So there's a puck that sits at the bottom of the pool. You dive down and you try and score the. I mean, I was hopeless at it. I was really, really bad. But I went there with lots of my friends, so it was lots of fun. And I'll tell you a very quick funny story. We had two teams in Inverness, where I'm from. One was really good team. One more recreational, so we say. And we both went down to the British Championships, and it was the Marauders and the Titans. So the Titans won every single game and didn't concede a goal. The Marauders didn't win a single game or score a goal. And that was my team. But it was fun. It was a good laugh.
That introduced you to how to lose gracefully, perhaps.
Well, that's it. To become a champion, you have to learn first how to lose.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I like that. That is very true. And so for you, so continue to grow up. That first judo experience, 8 years old, continued through. At what point did you or the family start to realize you were good at judo?
So I made the British team when I was 13 and then started travelling around Europe with the British squad. I was picking up medals here and there, and they just trying to see my mentality switch was different. I became more serious about it. I was getting a lot more upset and angry with myself if I was losing, and it was really important to me. And then living up north, we didn't have the same volume or number of training partners, and especially being up north, even just the quality, there wasn't very many people competing to the level I was. So thankfully for my mum and a close family friend, started to travel down to Edinburgh twice. to get that high quality in practice. And that was a 2.5 hours trip after school down to Edinburgh, 2 hour session, 2.5 hours back home, and at school the next day. And we did that twice a week just to help boost us on. And then it wasn't until the end of my high school that we had a new French coach, Darcel Ianzi. He's one of the best coaches in the world. He took over Judo Scotland as their head coach, and started to work with him. And that's really when I started to get the bite, thinking, oh, I could maybe make this into a career. I was at the time moving over to senior. I'd picked up my first senior medal, and I thought, oh, imagine what I could do if I was finished school and not having to worry about doing my homework or doing my studies and just focus my energy into judo. So it was kind of about that time when I seriously thought about a career as an athlete. Mum took a little bit more convincing.
Tell me about that. What did she need to be convinced about?
So Mum's very not old school, I wouldn't know how to describe it, but she was just always from a young age, education was the most important. If I was falling behind in my studies or my grades, judo would get that would be the first thing to drop, and I would have to spend more time building that those grades up, because she was always from the start, well, judo, it's fair enough, it's good that you're doing well, you're enjoying it, but most of your life will be after judo, so you have to have something to fall back on. And she said that to me from a very, very young age, that when I wanted to up my training 2 times a week down to Edinburgh, yep, that's all good and well, but you do your homework in the car on the way down, and you'll never miss schools, and if that starts to slip, then these will stop. So that was almost like not a threat, but something to scare me. Is like, oh gosh, if I've not got good in my education, then I'm going to miss my judo. So when I sat with them at the end of my high school, I asked, I want to do full-time judo. The plan always was to go off to uni, and I was like, I still want to do that, but I'm doing well in my career. I've just won a senior medal. I want to just focus on judo, especially with Darcel as head coach at the moment. And the deal with Mum was she'd give me 2 years of completely not worrying about university or studies, just focus on judo, that's it, and see how I can get on. But after the 2 years, I would have to then go to university and do my studying along with training. So that was the deal with becoming an athlete, and then down the line then studying alongside. So I'm very thankful for her to lighten up there, but also the importance of an education alongside.
And so what impact did that have on you during those 2 years?
Well, I just made the most of it. I mean, to study alongside it, that 2 years we were traveling everywhere. So all over Europe, whenever I go and talk about my career, I couldn't tell you a place in Europe that I've not been. And then we were traveling all over the world. We were doing different competitions, training camps. I was still very young. So the 2012 Olympics were coming up. So I had hopes to do that. That was further down the line when I was at university. But I was really just building up that experience, going to senior competitions, senior training camps, getting lots of beatings and little throws in and wins here and there. But it was just really building my experience and seeing what that journey was like as a full-time athlete. I was very, very lucky to be doing my dream job, essentially, for full-time for those 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, very lucky. It's a privilege, and to go through that experience, like it says, as that dream job. And
absolutely.
So when you think of that, so was that were you in a fully funded position, or were you having to work or get sponsorship as well?
So I was working actually at weekends. I was coming back up to Inverness where I lived, and I was just working in a local supermarket to help fund that. And I am very, very fortunate that I had very supportive parents. So they helped fund a lot of this. We did get some funding from national governing bodies, but not for the likes of living expenses or accommodation, which you can imagine is the biggest expense, and even just travelling back and forward to training. We had a lot of our trips funded at one point, so we didn't have to worry too much of that. It was later down the line, towards the end of my career, that I became a fully self-funded athlete. But at the beginning, there was money with the Scottish Institute of Sport. They provided a lot for us, but living expenses and all the other stuff around the sport, that was fully self-funded, and thankfully for Mum and Dad allowed me to pursue that career.
Hi, I want to take this moment to thank Upskilled and their mini MBA for sponsoring this week's session. One of the great things about their mini MBA is it allows you to gain the skills and knowledge to help propel you that little bit further forward. It gets you understanding the vocabulary in the room and also gives you some of those skills to navigate the corporate career, the government career, or indeed stepping into not-for-profit. So big thanks for Upskilled and the mini MBA for sponsoring this week. And hey, check it out. Link in the show notes. You can get $500 off.
Right. And what was the hardest thing for you during that period?
Well, I guess money was tough, so I never really had any extra money around to do normal stuff. You're going to a competition, and it's like, oh, making sure you had some money to just make sure you're buying supplies for your competitions or training camps, basics like your water or your snacks throughout the day or your meals. So you never felt fully comfortable and relaxed. I remember when I lived in Glasgow and again didn't have much money, went to do my weekly shopping. I was living away from home, so I was 18. I mean, I wasn't completely young, but 18-year-olds still young, living in the big city and embarrassing. I went to the shop, I'd bought in all my supplies to cook my meal for the week, and I just checked my balance in the machine outside, and I think I had about £50 in, so I was like, perfect, that'll be fine. Went up to the till, and my card kept getting declined, and I was like, no, I was like, I do have money, and the shopkeeper was like looking at me like, this girl's chancing it. I was like, no, I do. I was like, I'll go out and I'll get the cash out, and she was just like, can I have that shopping back? Because I'd already bagged it. And I was mortified because there's a queue behind me. I was like, yes, of course, but put it to the side. I'll just go get the money out the machine. I don't know what's working. And I remember crying on the phone to my mum and dad. I was like, don't know what's going on. It says I've got £50 and available £8. And mum's like, oh, well, available £8. That's actually what's in your account. 50 was what was maybe just in it, but the pending transaction, I was mortified. So the toughest part was, just managing how to budget, because like most people, you come out of high school or even university, you don't know how to budget for the likes of mortgage or what council tax and all this is. So just at that young age of not having to worry about that stuff, but just budgeting your money and not understanding how to read a cash machine was, I was mortified there.
Yeah.
But looking back on, I can appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah. It's perhaps a situation many of us can recognize in ourselves of reading it, whether it's that positive or minus. Who knows? I'm going to pay it. Let's see what happens.
So we'll take a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for you, as you then, you mentioned having to mix the two, both study and compete. What changed? So after that 2 years of you having your mum's grace to say to you, off you go, do your best. What changed for you when you started to study, and how did you know what to study?
Yeah, so that was a big one. So when I started university in 2008, and at this point I'd had 2 years of a taste of full-time training and was loving it. So the thought of going to university was like, oh, do I want to give up my full-time training and just like all this added instead of my afternoon naps, I'm going to have to afternoon studying. And I knew how tough training was. I was like, oh, but that was the deal. I'm going to have to. And at that point, after when I was in high school, I had clear thing in my head. I wanted to do law and do something else, and teaching was in there, but I was really leaning down towards the law route. And then I just thought that's not going to be possible at all. So I sat again with mom and dad and I was like, look, I've got the deal, like we need to, the importance of having a degree this day and age for jobs. I was like, I get that, but I don't know what to do. I was like, don't know what I like. So we've thought back to school. What did I enjoy? I enjoyed business. I enjoyed history. So we thought maybe a business degree opens up a lot of doors for everything. You can go into lots of area if you've got a business degree. So we decided to go with that. And my training was originally based in Glasgow at that point. So I applied for Glasgow universities and I got into Glasgow Caledonian, and I started my degree in Glasgow Caledonian. Now, about 6 months into my first year, the training moved from Glasgow over to Edinburgh. This was very difficult because we trained every morning, then twice a week at night, and so it involved a lot of traveling. So when I wasn't in class, I
Yeah.
was traveling. Again, that's your added fuel price. And just time and tiredness. So it became very, very difficult. And a lot of universities do have sports scholarship programs. So I went up to the university to see what there was. Now, unfortunately for me, the Glasgow Caledonian didn't really support any student athletes at all. There was nothing there. They kind of just disregarded it. So that was another burden or strain, and quite sad actually. And I hope the university reconsidered now. I don't. That was way back in 2008, but it became really difficult. Even with my judo practice, it was, if I had to miss two morning sessions a week because I had to go to university lectures. It was kind of the other team or the coaches. It's like, oh yeah, you're going to judo, you're going to uni again, is it? And whether they thought I was just training or if I wasn't doing university, I felt really guilty that quite often I missed my university lectures to go to training to almost prove I'm serious about judo. This is what I'm doing on the side. So I always had that guilt, and mainly my university, the ones that I had to, it was mandatory for grade. So if you had to go to every single class or lecture, and that count towards 15% of your grade, that well, they are the ones that I can't compromise on for my judo. So it was quite difficult, but that year, that 6 months that I was training, that I was studying in Glasgow and training in Edinburgh, that was really taking its toll. So I spoke with mum and dad, and they were very worried as well at the same time, because just rest, I was close to burnout, I was just tired, and weekends I was still travelling, doing competitions, camps, and any weekends I was having off, I just needed to crash and do nothing. But then I'm catching up in studies. It was very difficult. That I moved over, a great decision. I moved my university over to Edinburgh and moved to Edinburgh. So from Glasgow to Edinburgh. That's when I joined Heriot Watt University, which was night and day. Had a great sports scholarship program, very supportive, and it was, luckily for me, it was only 15 minutes from Ratho, which is where I trained. So I could go to my university, and then I could go to training where I could do my weights training. I maybe missed the judo in the morning, but I could do other training to catch up. Or I could be at my judo in the morning and then straight into uni. It was so much easier. And the team there, if I had any assignments or exams, they would speak to my lecturers and be like, look, Steph's away in Italy for a camp. She's not going to make this exam. What can we do to help her get that grade to prove that she's going to pass? So that was such a big pressure and relief. And I had a bursary with them also. So just without the Heriot Watt team, I don't know if I would have managed to complete my degree alongside judo. So I was very fortunate that I went through that horrible 6 months. It all happens for a reason, doesn't it? That horrible 6 months to give me the push to go over to Edinburgh, and then it made my life significantly easier. Well, not the studying, but easier to manage or juggle between both.
Yeah, you just mentioned it there, that juggle, that
Yeah.
logistic challenge that you need to go through in balancing academic prowess versus, achieving your sporting dream.
Yeah.
Wow.
It does take a lot, and it's dedication and just sacrifice. That's the main thing you have to do. Just as a full-time athlete for that 2 years, it's a lot of sacrifice. You sacrifice your social life, your friends. Oh, are you coming out? It's around about that time you're 18, so there's a lot of more people wanting to go out, and you're like, no, I can't. I'm in a big competition and training phase, and then throw in studying in the mix, and it's just, oh, you're a student now, you're enjoying student life. I'm like, I don't know what student life was. I was like, I had a great time in university and doing judo, but I didn't have your typical student life, which I don't regret, because I'm very lucky in what I did do. But juggling the judo and the studying at the side, and even when I was in Edinburgh, it's like, oh, you've got uni, and it's like uni this, and it was almost nobody did university at my training setup, so I
Right.
was like the only person that was studying towards the end. And then there was more funding that came in for student athletes. A few people then started to go down the study route, but I was one of the first ones to kind of pursue that.
Which I think is great. That took great courage from you and
Yeah.
belief, in yourself to be able to juggle the two together. How did the perspective from the coaches change over your career around the likes of yourself and others studying?
Yeah, so with me, I mean, there wasn't much they could do. I mean, I guess I was more scared of not doing what my mum was wanting me to do than the coaches. I mean, I was always told like to focus on your judo career because that won't be forever, but you can always go back to education, so that's always going to be waiting. You can study at any age in life, which is true. And I would go back with that argument to my mum and dad, and then they would argue back, well, that's the case, but who's going to really get picked for a job? Somebody fresh out of university, young, or someone who's maybe in coming up to their 40s, or and there's arguments for and against, and I appreciate there's maybe no right way to do it, but it also, you don't know when your sporting career could finish, so you might aim to, this could be my last competition in 2025, something could happen, which something happened to me that could then stop you from everything, and then what do you have? And that was always my mum's fear, which we would always discuss and talk about. So although my coaches, they were kind of put a big emphasis, this is the only time you're going to get to do this, you can study and go there, and I was like, yes, I appreciate that, and I'm doing everything I can, but at the same time, I always knew that my sporting career wouldn't be forever from observing and watching judokas before me, like then what do they go on to do? And a lot of people go on to coaching in clubs, and as much as that's something I would like to do, it wasn't something for a career that I was really interested in doing. I wanted to do something different than sport, but have that as a passion or a hobby at the side. So as the years went down, there was more funding becoming available for student athletes. So I was tapping into little avenues and pockets of money, which again was helping, especially when it was more self-funded. That was helping me then fund events that helped me towards Commonwealth selection and just traveling all over trying to gain qualification points. More and more people started to join the studying, and I used to think, I wonder, is that for the right reasons, or is that because there's a couple of £1,000 that I'm getting funded with because I'm studying that now that they would be entitled to? So I mean, I don't know that, and that's just an opinion that maybe isn't fair to say, but it was then more encouraged and more accepted, so more people were studying, thankfully, and good as well, studying a lot fear. Although I did used to notice that if these people ever did miss a training session for their class, they didn't get as much stick as I did. Maybe it was becoming more accepted and be like, oh, actually, yeah, you do have to do this now and again and catch up with training later on in the day.
Yeah. Well, even that in itself is an interesting shift for the coaches from chastising you as someone thinking about life after versus what came a bit later when more money came in and more people did it, hopefully for the right reasons, or at least getting the best outcome for them.
Yeah.
So roughly what year did you finish your studies, and what happened after that?
So I finished, I got my degree in 2012, and I
Yep.
just remember the beginning of that year was crazy because the Olympics were in London, and so British Judo were sending a full team, one person in every weight. So you kind of just got taken in by the dream. It's like, wow, that could be me. So that beginning of that year, I was traveling as much as I could to try and get qualification points to qualify for this Olympic Games that would never happen in my lifetime, being a home games. At the same time, I had my 4 university modules, so 4 assessments, 4 exams. On top of that, I was writing a 15,000 word dissertation project. So my that 6 months of that first part of that year was just insane, and a little bit naive trying to qualify for the Olympic Games at that age. I was still very young. There was other people in my weight category. Sarah Clark, who went, she had been European champion. So I was nowhere near that level at this stage in my career, but still the dream and desire or drive to try and go for it, rather than when I'm 50 wondering, oh, what if I didn't give it all? So I pushed myself to my full limits, tried to study every opportunity when I'm traveling or at the hotel. So my focus, although it was 100% on trying to go for Olympics, there was also part of me, right, this is my last part of my degree, I need to push on. So that split, very, very difficult. That when it was official that I didn't qualify for Olympics, of course I was devastated. And I was like, oh, well, and I could reflect thinking, yeah, that's fair. Maybe it was too young, but maybe in Rio I'd been older, more mature, have more results under me. But the good side of that is I managed to get my degree and pass my course. So
Yeah.
that was my one kind of, oh, that was good. That after that, I was just, I feel like I describe it as burnt out. I actually stopped judo from the June until the August. So I stopped judo for the summer and I went into full-time employment.
Right.
But
Okay. What do you do?
so a close family friend, Tracy Gellin, she's been with us since I was done judo since I was 6. She was one of the CEOs at Burger King, so she got me involved in a graduate manager program. So I thought, yeah, she's a very very successful businesswoman, someone that I'd aspire to be like after my sporting career. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I've never been in a position where I've worked full time and made money, and this is good. I've done management at uni. This is a managing a graduate job. So off I went and I did that. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not the line of work that I see myself, but I thought, well, if I want to get to somewhere like Tracy, you've got to start from the ground and build up. Like, I'm very aware of how it works. So I was like, right, that's absolutely fine. And as the summer went on and the Olympics was happening, I was watching that and I was like, oh, I'm not ready to finish and hang up my judo suit yet. I felt there's more I can give. And with the Commonwealth Games 2 years after that, there was then talks about Judo Scotland, the Commonwealth Games, the big focus. And I was like, yeah, that's something that's much more achievable or realistic, because I was one of the top players in Scotland for my weight category. And I thought, yeah, that's something that I could do. It's in Glasgow, there's going to be a full team going. And I remember sitting on the Chicken Royale station at work because we had staff off, and I was helping out. Just whenever needs help, you get mucked in with your staff. And I remember making chicken royales, and I think that was the last session, which if I had any doubt, oh, do I give up this potential start in my career to go back into training? And must have spent 2 hours making chicken royales, and I was like, I'm handing my notice in tomorrow. No, I need to get back to judo. But I always laugh at that. It's like, no, you know what? I've got more to give. This is I don't think I could do any more just making burgers and whatnot. Like, that wasn't the management side of it, but you have to be a team player and get stuck in with things. So I've got nothing wrong with doing that at all. But I thought, no, you know what? There's more to go with my judo, and I would really regret if I didn't pursue something. So thankfully, again, it all happens for a reason. Maybe that day was the kick up the bum that I needed to just get back into training.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it was, right? It sounds like it did kick you back into gear to say, hold on, this dream isn't over.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You've had your time out. Your body's recovered. You've got over the stress and the craziness at the start of the year. You've enjoyed making a little bit of money and having a little bit of a normal life for the
Mm.
summer. So now it's time to get back focused and into it. It was almost like an extended 2-week holiday.
So how did you feel quitting that job?
I felt really, really bad. So again, it was approaching my mum and dad and saying, look, I know this is good for me. I'm making money, and maybe it's the kickstart of my career that I could go off, but I'm just not happy. I feel like I've got more to offer the judo. The Commonwealth Games is 2 years away. That's a lot more realistic. Then the Olympics, Rio, is 2 years after that. That could spiral on. They're more realistic for me. I also felt guilty. I phoned Tracy and I spoke to Trace, who I knew had pulled me strings to get me on the graduate management programme. So I felt really guilty that I was letting her down, that she had vouched for me and put me up and got me this job. And I was, one summer in, was like, no, not for me. So I felt I was letting people down in order to pursue something that meant more to me. But my reasoning behind it, when I was explaining it to people, it made sense. But it's still horrible when you feel that you do let people down and almost feel like you're selfish, wanting something for yourself. And now, even saying that, when you think back, that's not a selfish thing at all to have. You need to do what's right for you, but at the same time you still have that, and also, is this the right decision? I mean, there's always a chance that I wasn't going to qualify for the Commonwealth Games or Olympic Games. There's always a chance that something could happen. So it's weighing up those pros and cons. But no, I knew my passion was in judo at that time, and I needed to pursue it.
So how did you know it was the right decision?
I mean, that chicken Royale, I just thought, I could be training right now and be crying from how hard that training was, because tears were very common in my training, just the sheer volume and toughness that we did. I thought, no, I just miss it. I miss getting into a fight, and I just knew that from watching the Olympics, and the Olympics were going on at the same time, and seeing all these people achieving their dreams and seeing all those medalists up there in this podium that have worked hard all their lives and getting that reward, I just thought, no, I feel I've got more to give, even if it's not an Olympic medal one day, but it could be, I could still have more results to my name than what I currently had. So I just knew I had more to give and that I wanted it, and I wanted that more than I wanted to pursue a career in management at that moment in time. So I knew I wasn't the best person for myself to stay in a profession job, and that I knew I was in the best place to go into my sporting career, having sacrificing a normal career for my sporting. So I knew I had to make it work. So my mindset was different. It meant more, and there were more. I couldn't let myself down, or the others who I felt I had let down by giving up this job.
Yeah. So how hard did you work to make it to the Glasgow Commonwealth Games?
Oh, I'd never trained for anything as hard before in my life. And again, that time I was a fully self-funded athlete. So my mum and dad, they're like, look, we can't support you the same way, so you're going to have to try your best. So I approached John Buchanan. So he actually also qualified for the Commonwealth Games. He was a world European medalist in judo, one of the top guys in Scotland for judo. He has a big club. And I went up to him and I was like, look, John, I was like, I know you've got a big club. Is there any chance that I could come coach for you? I'm looking just to make a little bit extra money. And him and his wife, they're very, very helpful. They gave me as many classes that I could manage or wanted, which really helped get me that money to get me through just week to week and month to month, with the likes of rent, food, fuel, just your basic needed stuff to get you through the month. And then from my business career, I was like, right, what can I pull from here? And I spoke with the Scottish Institute of Sport. They have lifestyle advisors. So I went up and I was like, look, I'm really serious about this, but it's difficult now. I don't know. I went from having a full-time wage, now I'm just getting little bits and pieces. I can't afford to fund these trips that I need to try and qualify for Commonwealth Games. So I set up a big fundraising campaign. I wrote into different companies, different support. I went to my university, see if there's anything more. We had fundraising events, like lots of my friends helped in, and I worked out a rough ball figure for me to qualify for the Commonwealth Games. I raised fully round about the £25,000 mark, which is an insane amount of money, and it's crazy to think that all that money went over 2 years, went traveling the world to fight and qualify for competitions. And I'm very thankful that I managed to spend other people's sponsorship very generous amounts, and it paid off, and I did get there. So that pressure of being a self-funded athlete, that if I didn't get to these events then I wouldn't have qualified, was really good. And again, it was that kick that I'm not just training for myself, I'm training for others as well, because they're believing in me and they're giving me this sponsorship that I need to go out there. So I never trained for anything as hard before in my life. I was back full-time training, never missed a session, did everything my coaches said, and I was in the best physical. It was in the peak of my career going into that Commonwealth Games.
And so, what did it feel like walking out for the final?
Yeah, so I always say, so when I was standing at the side of the mat going out, I had the English girl. So it was Scotland v England. We were the very last fight on of the day, and every other Scottish player before that match had won it, apart from, yeah, every other player on my day, the Scottish player in that match, had won their fight, and I was the last Scottish fight out there. And we'd fought each other 5 times before that day. So she'd beat me 3 times, and I'd beaten her twice. So always what I say is, what that meant is we both knew each other's judo really, really well, strengths, weaknesses, but both knew we were capable of beating each other because we'd already done it. But when I stood at the side of that mat before going out, I was so confident in my head that I was going out to win that day and become the Commonwealth champion and win that gold, because I knew I'd never trained for anything before in my life as hard in my life. I'd eaten the right things, had enough rest. I'd pushed myself in every session, listened to all what my coaches had said. I'd beaten her before. I knew her. I was just so confident and sure that when I went out there, there was just no doubt. Now, my bio said I was the first silver medal. So I went out that day, and Dakota, she was the better judo player. She held me down for the win, and I had to settle for that silver medal. And to say I was disappointed, not disappointed would be a lie. Of course I was, but I could still be really proud and happy because I had no regrets in my head, thinking, if only I'd done this better, if only I'd done that better. Because I was fully prepared and ready, you could almost not accept, but you could justify or reason that, yep, you know what, judo's just like that. A little small lapse in concentration will cost you the fight. Maybe next time we fought, I would be the winner. So I could still be so happy with that medal because I had no regrets. But when I stood out to go out in that mat, I was excited. I was so prepared, and I've never been so confident before in my life. Which is sad it never came out with the gold, but I'm still delighted that I came away knowing that I did the best of my abilities.
Yeah, and as you should be proud, like you say, getting to the final, the dream
Yeah,
of people, even those watching, we dream of that type of opportunity. So,
yeah,
like you say, silver medal is, it's quite an achievement,
yeah.
as we. And so, what was next for you? So after that, I mean, after not making the Olympics, you basically retired.
Yeah.
Um, then you had your chicken royale moment, came back in, achieved, like you said, that pinnacle of your career. So what was next for you?
So as soon as I finished the Commonwealths, we were in the village for that 2 week. Judo was the very first day, so that 2 weeks left of the games, we were in the village and we're just enjoying life and loving it. That there was no doubt in my head what was next for me. So I knew Olympic Games was 2 years away. I was in the best shape of my life. If anything, even my mental state of mind, I was so confident and so much more confident in my abilities than where I was in 2012. I could see the difference in how confident the qualification tournaments on the way up to that. I'd had the best sporting career in my life. I'd picked up lots of medals. But instead of going into tournaments a little bit nervous, like back in 2012, like, oh, I don't know, am I going to win this? I was confident. I was going out there to win a medal, and I wasn't settling for just fighting good. I was going out there to win fights, so my mentality was different. That I was in the best shape of my life, and I knew, you know what, if I have the same drive and same work ethic, or push myself even more, 2016 Olympics would be not unrealistic. So it was definitely a possibility for me. So I went straight back into full time training, working hard as ever with that other new clear goal in my head to get to Olympics. Started up an Olympic fundraising campaign from the off, thinking, right, if I'm doing that, I need to have something, if not be raising more to get to more events to try and give me the best chance of qualifying to become in the top, I think the top 20 in the world. So that was going, it's a big task, but I needed to do as much as I could. That then brought me to the end of the 2014, and in order to compete in competitions worldwide, I had to be on the British team. So we had the big British Championships at the end of the year, and you had to medal there to then be able to represent Britain across the world. So I had to fight that, but sadly, the week before, my granny had passed away. So it was the first person that I'd ever lost that was really close to me, and I was really, as you can imagine, really, really upset, and it really hit me hard. My granny and granddad lived with us for since I was 8 years old, so I see them every single day. So it was a really, really tough thing to happen for everyone. But my headspace and mental state, it wasn't there for this upcoming competition. No matter how much I spoke to mum and dad and knew that she would want me to be there because it could jeopardize my Olympic if I wasn't on the squad. But I wasn't in a good state of mind, and I spoke to coaches, and they said that it could be career ending if I didn't fight and compete. So I did fight. I let probably never stuck by my initial gut feeling that I shouldn't, because I wasn't in a good frame of mind, wasn't in a good space, and I let not coaches pressurize me, but that threat or that risk of that being career ending and not being opted onto the British squad the following year, or even fighting what's the word, in UK competitions to try and get opted on. That was always a possibility. I just was like, oh, you know what, I'll just fight it. and I'll do what I can, and just to get that medal so I can carry on, pursue that Olympic goal. And my first fight in, I had a really bad knee injury. So a girl, I don't even know who she was an up and coming athlete. She went in for a throw and I had blocked it, not very good, and something happened to my leg. With the adrenaline going, I could continue that fight, and I beat her, came off. I then won my next fight, so it got me into the final four. So by this time, I'd managed to secure a medal regardless of fighting my next three fights. So I had a couple hours break, and I said to my dad, who was coaching me at this one, said, something's happened to my knee. I don't know what it is, but it's really, really hurting. And I spoke to my Scottish head coach, and I was like, look, I've done something to my knee. He's like, oh, go and see the physio. So the physio was down, and my physio was like, oh, I'm not actually here on duty. I'm here just watching. And she was like, oh, go and have a look at first aid. So she sent me away, and I was like, oh, right, okay, I appreciate that. Sometimes we don't like it's a typical, maybe a physio thing, that you've got a physio friend and you go and see, oh, I've got a sore foot, and maybe she was feeling that way, but I was still a professional athlete. I wasn't chancing my luck. And sent me to first aid to go get strapped up and ice. Like, just go get it strapped up and ice it. Like, right, okay. So I did, and I was wanting to pull out of the final four. I'd made it. I got that bronze medal. At the end of the day, I don't want to fight the fights, but again, coaches had a little bit of pressure, need to go on and do it. My head wasn't in the game, so maybe I contributed to hurting my knee because I wasn't sharp. My mind was elsewhere to block it correctly. I'm not sure, but I remember standing for that final block, and I stood at the edge of the mat, and usually you jump up and down getting yourself ready, and I could barely stand on it, and I was like, there's something really not right with this knee. But I almost felt my coaches thought I was just wanting to not fight, and I wanted to just pull out because not very many people like fighting the British because there's so much pressure on it. Felt like they were thinking I was trying to do anything to pull out, and I wanted to prove them wrong. Like, that's not the case, right? I'll just go out and fight. And I got beat all the fights there and still just went away with the bronze regardless. And I got beat by players who'd never beaten me before. And that, in my head, I was like, oh gosh, like, I can't believe that. I mean, everyone can get beat, but I just knew I wasn't fighting to my ability, and they'd managed to not take advantage, but they came out on top. But had it been me normally, it wouldn't be the case. So I remember coming off, and I spoke to my dad, and we drove back from Sheffield. And that night when we arrived back at my flat, I could barely get out the car. My knee had stiffened right up, and it was just, I was like, I've done something to this knee. I was like, I don't know what it is. And woke up the next day to go into training. I couldn't even walk. I was using my broomstick, my brush from the kitchen as a crutch. And my dad had to basically carry me into training. Went up to physio. I was like, look, my knee, I just don't know what's going on. And took them about, I want to say, because it's so far back now, 2014. This was 2015, just after coming into 2015. It took them a couple of months to realise that I'd actually, it wasn't when they were doing some video analysis that my first fight came up, and they seen it and they were like, oh, because they were just trying to rehab me. And it wasn't getting any better. If anything, it was getting worse. And then they finally had watched the video and be like, oh, actually, something looks like really nasty here. And then they finally sent me away for a scan. The scan had said that I'd torn my MCL and my lateral ligament and my hamstring as well. It had come off whichever tendon. I can't remember the exact terminology, but I'd done a grade 2 tear, so something really serious. And they pulled me in. They were like, look, this is what's happened, come back from scan. So unfortunately, the rehab's not going to work. You're going to have an operation, which is going to take you out for 6 to 8 months. And I'm doing the maths in my head, 6 to 8 months. That's realistically not going to be back into competition till November, December in 2015. Olympics to qualify for in 2016. I've already tried to last minute qualify for London. Realistically, for me not wanting to fight that competition and being told it was career ending if I didn't, ironically, it became career ending that I did fight it, because my knee was just gone. That shattered those Olympic dreams again, and I was just devastated and just so heartbroken. And I was getting on with age. I mean, realistically, it was the 2020 Olympics. Would I be back for that? Like, age on my side, younger athletes are always coming up and pushing your older athletes away or out of things. And it's just, I came to a point in my life where I was just like, okay, right, what is next? And that's that's where I was at that moment in time, and I was just so upset.
Yeah, I can imagine it. Even listening to it now, it is an upsetting event or upsetting series of events that took place. What did you do first?
So the first thing I had to move back up with my mum and dad because I couldn't. As soon as I got the operation, just moving around was really hard. I lived in flats, so I had to be upstairs, and mum and dad had a spare room that was lower level, just all on one level. So I moved up home, and I was just sat down. I was like, right, what am I going to do with my life now? Like, what am I doing? I mean, do I do what other athletes have done, but maybe earlier on than me, just rehab and come back into competition? But then realistically, a judo player comes in, your lifespan's maybe till around about your 30s, about that. And I was like, oh, right, what am I going to do? How's it going to look all realistically? And I just thought, well, if I'm going to be out of judo for this next year and a bit, I might as well put that to good use. So I started to look at what my life could be like after sport. And I thought, a lot of my friends had gone straight to university, had got graduate jobs. So I started to look at graduate jobs. And I started just applying for everything I could see. I was just like, yep, what? My business degree, it's open for lots of things. So I was applying for different graduate management trainee positions. And I'd applied for one, again, Tracy had recommended, oh, why don't you try for a company called, it's a car rental company, Enterprise. They've got a really good graduate management program. I was like, yep, okay. So that was one of the ones I applied for, and I was looking at lots of others, and I sent off so many applications. That was my focus for the next however many weeks. I was just always on my computer looking at this, that, typing up a CV. And then that's when I got an email in to go out to Vietnam to teach English to underprivileged primary kids for 5 months. And I thought, this email. I mean, it was just spam email because obviously I'd signed up for lots of things when I was applying and getting onto job websites. And I was like, okay, let me have a look into this. So then I was like, I'd always wanted to do teaching, but knew I couldn't do that with judo because you have your 6-week placements. I couldn't combine properly training or even traveling with a proper primary degree. And I thought, okay, I need to do my 1 year teaching qualification at university to become to study to become a teacher. It's like, but maybe I need to go and experience what it's going to be like first. And so I applied to go out to Vietnam to teach. And at that moment, I had been successful in the recruitment process to go to Enterprise Rent-A-Car to start a business management trainee program. So I'd managed to secure that job. And then this came around, and I thought, but this is teaching to do with kids, something that I've always wanted to do. Maybe I'll go try it. And so I applied and got accepted to go in January, but accepted my job and got the job for Enterprise in December for starting in February. And so I went to Enterprise with hands up. I was like, look, I've actually accepted an internship in Vietnam for 5 months. Is there any chance that you could postpone my start date to the summer? Because they recruit all year round. And I was very lucky that they said, yep, that's no problem. We'll start you 6 months in. We'll start you in the summer intake. And I was like, oh, brilliant. And I was so thankful. So off I went to Vietnam for that 5 months to see if I'd like teaching before I committed to go back to university for that year. And no, I absolutely loved it. And again, I got that judo bug when I was in Vietnam. I was loving life. Yep, I was loving life. That was in 2016. I was really enjoying myself. I was like, yeah, you know what? I really like this in the classroom. Could see myself doing this. I mean, it was a different experience because I'm teaching primary kids English that can't really speak back to you and they don't know much, but so fun. I thought, yeah, this is something that I can see myself doing back home. Then all the final competitions and trainings up for the Rio 16, I was watching along and tracking that, and I was like, oh, and I just had that itch in the back of my head for judo. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do over there? And then by halfway through Vietnam, I was like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to have to go back into training and see what 2020's maybe got en route for me. So I knew I wanted to definitely become a teacher. I also knew that I wanted to go back into training. And I also knew that enterprise job was waiting for me as well. I was like, oh gosh, which one do I pursue? Which one do I go down? So
And
when
did you make a decision?
I had decided that I would go back into training and see if I could study and do uni around my training. So I knew I wanted to go back into judo, but also knew I couldn't commit to the level that I was doing previously. I knew it wouldn't be. Whereas before, judo was always my main focus. If you asked me between judo and university what was more important to me, it was always judo. So I would miss my university lectures here and there to go to judo instead of the other way around. That was my most important thing. Whereas I decided I want to go back into training, but I knew I couldn't to that level of missing things. So I thought, maybe I could this time do my 1 year's teaching around my judo, because I would have to focus on my studies this time more than the judo and make it work that way, but just be really even more dedicated and strict with myself.
Why? What had changed in your outlook that judo and the future studies had swapped their priority?
I think because I'd had that initial, after my operation, I'd had a taste of, oh, my life, I'm not going to always have judo. Actually, I'm only, how old was I back in when I was there? I was only 25 years old, and I've actually got hopefully touch it, a long life ahead of me that's not going to have judo. So that was the first time where I thought, oh, yeah, this is serious. I always knew my judo career would end, but you don't really think about it too much. And I'd had a taste of it, and I was like, gosh, I was like, this is just playing a small part of my life that I really need to think and fully prepare for my future. So I knew then that if I was to return back to training and try and go for 2020, it wouldn't be an easy thing. It would be tough. But if I was serious about teaching, I needed to prioritize that for the year and train full time around it as much as I could. So it was just that flavor or that taste when I'd done my knee injury that I was like, oh, okay, this is quite scary. I'm not going to be in this safe judo bubble where the focus is just judo and you just have to focus on turning up, doing your best and doing weight training, and then going to this country one weekend, this country the other. Actually, this isn't the real life as much as it was my real life for so long, and which I'm very thankful for. I thought, I need to do something else. So my decision was I was definitely going back to judo to see what I could do. And I also knew the Birmingham Commonwealth Games, they'd just been secured for 2022 in Birmingham. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of another home games. And in my head, I had that, well, 2020, let's go for it. And then my final competition before I'd retire, I could last my days until 2022, and that would be my final retirement. That'd be my final competition. So I had that planned out in my head that that's what I would do. And up until that, if I got my 1 year primary teaching behind my belt, and then I could finish my career as a judo player and go straight into teaching. So in an ideal world, of course, whether it would have played out like that, who knows? It changed a different.
Yeah, and look, so then you had then the horrific accident happened in Vietnam, and you woke up 6 months later to
6 weeks.
6 weeks later. Sorry, you woke up 6 weeks later to a whole new perspective on life. When you came through that, what did you think judo? What role would judo play in your life from that point? How had things changed?
Yeah, so my mum especially was very worried at this point, and my doctors, I don't think they really took me seriously. So they were all just surprised at the recovery I was making, how it was a miracle, and they couldn't believe that this was happening. It was my sporting background and the fact I was so goal driven. But in my head, I was thinking, right, 2020, this is 2016. Don't know how long I'm going to be out and get over this. Probably going to be quite a while. So I thought 2020, okay, that's maybe not going to be reachable. It's probably going to be like another 2012. I'm going to try my best, but it's not realistic. I was like, but 2022 Commonwealth Games, finishing off that as my last competition, that is really realistic. All I have to be is number one in Scotland, which I knew I was more than capable of being. And so my goal, and I said it from the start, I just couldn't wait to get back on the mat. I'm going to get back training, and 2022 is going to be my goal. But up until then, who knows? Maybe I'll qualify for Europeans or Worlds in the process. And Mum is just, as if she wasn't traumatized enough. It's like, well, I don't think you should be worrying about that just now. I don't think that's possible. And I was like, nope, that's what the plan is. So she spoke to the doctors to come and have a lot of these tough conversations with me, that wouldn't be the case. And I've just, I could be very stubborn. I was like, you know what, I've defied their 1% chance of survival odds, so I can defy any other odds. That if I want to get back to judo, that's ultimately my decision. Because my doctor sat me down, it's like, I know you're dead keen on getting back to judo and that's your goal. However, with a head injury as serious as yours, it was a miracle that you survived, and you've used up all your cat's lives, that if you took another bang to your head, you wouldn't come through that. And because judo is a contact sport where you do get thrown, and not that you get thrown on top of your head, but your head can get hit here and there. And then I was just like, oh, like, so I'm not going to sign you off that you can do judo again. Yeah. So I was like, he's like, but if you look hard enough or you look more, a doctor, I'm sure, would eventually sign you off that you could return. However, it could be fatal. So at that point, I was like, oh my goodness, like, is this actually officially the end of my judo career? Not through my own choice. So I thought about it, and I was like, no, you know what? I think I can still do it. I think I can do it. Like, nobody can tell me. I can just get up on the mat and just start training and just do it's fine. I just won't get thrown in my head. And then I thought, I visualized myself in a competition. And when you're standing at the side of the mat, you have to be confident in your ability to win, to set you up in the right place. And if there's any doubt or any nerves in your mind, that then puts you at a disadvantage to your opponent because you're not fully focused. And I thought of myself standing at the side of the mat, if I'm worried that, oh, I've got to make sure I've got to protect my head, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm almost focusing on the things that could go wrong instead of focusing on the right. So I was like, okay, you know what, right, I get it, I'm not going to be able to. And I was lying in bed one night just from this side of my head that's now got a metal plate in it. I was lying on my pillow and I moved and I got a really bad sharp shooting pain just where the plate is. There's a wee bump in my head that now and again, if I accidentally hit it, just if I'm scratching my head or moving my hair out of my way or I lean on it funny, it's really, really painful. And I thought I couldn't even do groundwork judo and use my head for balance. So I realised eventually through my own discoveries that, right, sadly, judo is now officially off the cards, which again broke my heart. I was like, oh, I could have done more. I mean, I had a good career. I had lots of results under my belt, and Glasgow Commonwealth Games was that pinnacle. I felt I could do more, but that was it. It's like, I was, at the end of the day, I was lucky to be here. So sport, at the end of the day, it's always coming to an end. It's just, it pains me that it came to an end out with my control. But that happens to a lot of athletes. They have a career-ending injury, unfortunately, so they have to retire due to that rather than when they chose to. So
and you look back at that now, how does it make you feel?
yeah, no, it still breaks my heart. I mean, I watched all the way up to the Birmingham 2022, and don't get me wrong, there's been times through these past 7 years where I've still thought, you know what, I think I could get back out there. And like, Scottish judo, I mean, it's not as strong as it was in 2014. I could still go out there, and these girls, they wouldn't manage to, like, it could be. And I would think that to myself, and my partner Ali, and speak to him, and he's like, no, you're not doing it. I was like, all I have to do is be really fit and really strong. So and I've got the judo of my training. All I'd have to do is be in the gym and doing weights and do like minimum judo, not even practice or fighting practice judo, just do technique. But I wouldn't need to be used as a partner. I mean, I've got exemptions that nobody would have to use me as a partner. And I had all this in my head. I was like, well, because I'm looking at the girls there, I was like, I would manage to beat them. I would be number one in Scotland, even if I wasn't training on the judo mat consistently. If I was too strong or really fit, that's enough. And I was thinking this, and even right up until the Commonwealth Games in 2022, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm still right. Even to these days, I'm stubborn enough or pig-headed or whatever to think, no, I still could have done it. Whether I would have then competed in the competition well would be another story, but I do feel I would have qualified. But maybe I'm living in a pipe dream with that, and we'll never know, which is maybe for the best also.
Could be. Maybe perhaps all as athletes, we always look at what's going on now and think, oh, I've still got another year or two in me. I could still
Yeah.
do that. They don't know, these youngsters nowadays.
Yeah. Oh, you to say that when you're looking on, thinking, "No, I trained harder than that. I can do it more." But you also don't know what anyone's always doing. It's out with your control. But
Yeah. So for you, with that career, accepting that injury had halted your career, stopped your career in its tracks, how did you know? How did you figure out that teaching was going to be for you?
yeah, so again, doctors told me that I wouldn't even my psychiatrist. Yep, they told me that I wouldn't be able to do a career in teaching. So they says, oh, teaching wouldn't be for you. The frontal lobe part of my brain that I injured is your reasoning section of your brain, and it says that I wouldn't manage the stress or just the different things going on, and to manage to regulate or control my emotions, that teaching probably wasn't the best profession for me. So they really put me off teaching. And I thought, okay, right. I don't want to go into a class and snap at these kids or be that horrible teacher. So I listened to them there, and I thought, right, I've still got this job at Enterprise. They were very, very good, and they again postponed my start date until I was better. They'd heard everything that had been in the paper, and they'd contacted my parents and says, look, we're happy to postpone this, and they're very supportive. So in April 2017, that's when I started my career at Enterprise, and I thought, okay, I was really disappointed to hear that I wouldn't be able, the doctors wouldn't think I could manage teaching. And having experienced a little bit, I wasn't sure myself. I had to take their lead in it. So I was like, right, I've got a job anyway. Let me go and see that. So I did Enterprise for 2 years. I was missing sport, and I was still thinking, I think I want to do something more rewarding. As much as I enjoyed trying to reach sales target. I was basically a glorified salesperson. I was like, as much as there's targets there, which kept me driven, and the career and progression was good, that I was always something to work on. There was something missing, and I just didn't have the same passion. And so I thought, I need to be doing something in sport with kids. And it was my partner that found a job in Sports Scotland as an active schools coordinator. So it was working in primary and high schools and trying to get kids involved in after school extracurricular activities. And I thought, oh, that ticks a lot of boxes. I'm working in primary schools, not as a teacher. I'm working in sports, and I'm promoting everybody to be as fit and healthy as they can, which was now so important to me after my accident. So I was like, you know what, this could be good. So I did that for 2 years, and I really loved it. And it was a great time, and I felt I made a good impact. I was doing sport, I was involved in every way I could, and I also did lots of different projects, even in class with teachers, doing some resilience projects with certain groups of pupils. Again, really rewarding, and really enjoyed it. And it wasn't until that point, it was just coming into the summer, and I said to my partner, I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm really enjoying this, but I want to have more of a classroom role. Whenever I'm in the classroom working with these kids, I'm enjoying being in the classroom, and I want to do more of that. And I thought, doctors said I wouldn't manage to work in a school environment around kids, and I've been doing it for 2 years, and I've kept my cool. I've not really come in front of faced too many difficult obstacles. I was like, I think they could be wrong again. And then that's when I thought, and I just had that itch in my head. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna apply to try and do my 1 year, because it's a very difficult course to get into in Scotland because it's so popular, because you just have to do 1 year postgrad and then you can become a teacher. But you know what, I'm gonna give myself the opportunity, or the option. I'm gonna
Mhm.
apply, see if I get in, because if I don't get in, well, there's my answer. But if I do get in, then you know what, maybe I'm just going to go and give it a go. So that's what we did. We applied. I got into the University of Aberdeen to do my postgraduate in teaching. And I thought, okay, again, I'm getting a little bit older. I don't want to wait and put this off too old, so I'm going to go and do my teaching qualification. This course was apparently going to dissolve within the next couple of years. So I
Oh,
thought, I don't want to go to uni and do a 4-year course. So is this a sign that I'm not going to do a 4-year course, but I could do a 1 year? I'm quite happy to do that. The sign that's about to dissolve and no longer be. It's like, yep, I think that's it. I think I need to go and do it now while I can. And yeah, see, my doctors still, they weren't keen on it. They're like, well. And I was like, well, you know what? And I had an argument now. I've worked in primary schools. I've
mm.
felt fine. Even in the high schools I've been in, which are more challenging behaviour, and I've kept my cool. I haven't had to deal with anything, and that might happen. I might deal with things further on in life, but I want to go and give it a try, because when I'm 60 looking back, I don't want to think, I wonder if they would be wrong again. So I went and studied for the year through Aberdeen University. It was during the COVID time, so it was all done online. So I was in my home office doing all the studying. I had my 2 placements and they went well, so I was teaching in the class, and I've now just completed my 1 year probation and I'm a fully qualified teacher now, which is something that I'm very proud of, and I feel like I defied a few more odds. But it's just another example, is you don't always know unless you try within reason. I mean, I guess it's probably the best reason that I never went and tried to see if I could have got back into judo or not. You weigh it up by risk factor, but no, I'm very, very lucky that my stubbornness or my
Yeah.
refusal to give up hopefully paid off in this position or in this circumstance.
And congratulations on becoming a fully qualified teacher. I think that is
Yeah.
a achievement, as we were talking about much earlier. So, I'm curious though, from judo and that little stint of teaching, you found yourself basically in a sales role when you found yourself at Enterprise, as you described it. What was it about that environment that didn't gel with you?
So I did very well, and my manager was like, "How do you think you're doing so well with sales?" I'm like, "Well, I've trained my whole life. My coaches tell me what to do, and you've laid out very clear the what we should say and how we should handle situations, and I followed it step by step process and become successful." That's how I did with judo. So my mindset was with that. But what didn't gel with me, I didn't find it rewarding. I mean, there wasn't much difference I could impact in lives by asking if they wanted a sat nav or if they wanted a bigger car or to buy our insurance. I would come away and I was like, oh, I had a good day today. I had good in sales. I've won awards at being top airport sales award. And I was like, yeah, that's very nice, but I'm not really making a difference or an impact. And I just felt like I had more to offer and I wanted to do something rewarding. I'd been in a very very fortunate position in my life, training, being a full time athlete, that I wanted to give back, and that wasn't a way to give back. Yep, I could help a company and help be a successful sales, but what is that really contributing in a bigger scale? Whereas I just felt when I'd done some judo coaching, when I was there training for the Commonwealths, it was nice to see the impact I was having on these kids. I was helping them learn when they go to competition and win a medal, or even in practice if they managed to get that throw, and see the joy and the delight that, oh, and they were proud that really meant something. And I wanted that feeling that I was helping others reach their goals and what they wanted to achieve and making a real impact or difference. And that's what was missing when I was in Enterprise. I'd seen it in Vietnam. I'd spoke to a lot of the kids who were a little bit more advanced in their English in the high school, and how I was helping them achieve their dream. And I seen the impact and difference I was making in a more rewarding way, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does. I fully understand. So when you think about yourself now as a teacher, what do you think you're bringing from, I'll say from, well, actually judo and your enterprise experience? What do you think you're bringing into the classroom?
So I think in having feedback from parents and the kids, just because last week was our last week of term, I think I bring a lot of positivity and energy into my classroom. Definitely resilience. I've worked with some pupils who parents says that they're like a completely different kid at the end of the year. They're very shy and nervous and would very quickly give up on something than actually stick with it and persevere. So I definitely bring in showing the kids how to persevere and be resilient. So that's something. But one thing that I've been very passionate about is, and I said this to my deputy and my managers, and when I was going for jobs, or even when I was applying for university, that the most important thing that I can give as a teacher and as a person is giving my kids confidence. So I always say that if I can help that individual become more confident in their abilities and they can believe in themselves, that the learning that'll just follow along. Whether it's if you have, and I seen at the start of the year, some of my kids very shy, not wanting to speak and really nervous, which is normal in a brand new class. And I had, my class was 7 and 8 year olds, so very normal to be so shy and quiet. But from the end of the year, confidence blossoming and then their learning following suit. So my biggest goal when I go into my class is making them more resilient, so building on their resilience, but also just their confidence and belief in themselves, because I knew firsthand when I was confident going into a judo fight, that was a whole different ball game than when I was going in a little bit nervous and like, oh, am I good enough? Oh, can I do this? So that's one thing that I really think I bring in, is giving them confidence in their abilities and helping them build on their resilience.
Yeah, that's great. That's really, really interesting. You know, that's what you bring as an elite athlete coming into the classroom.
Yeah.
And I guess I ask you the next question, thinking back on your career as an athlete through to where you are today, when you think of that next generation coming through, what sort of advice, or, well, I shouldn't say advice, but based on your experience, what guidance would you give to them to help them navigate their career with that thought of, well, what comes after judo?
Yeah, so I always have that no regrets. So just doing as much as you can, and nobody will know you better than you know you. You know if you've gone in a training session or even a competition and given it your all, no matter how you perform and what your coaches might say, oh, you did really good here. I mean, I laugh with my dad. Some competitions when I was growing up, I could have fought really, really terrible, but come away with the gold medal. Or I could have fought really, really good and not come away with a medal. But you always know in yourself how you've fought or what effort and energy you've given. But what I do say to some aspiring athletes is to celebrate all your wins, because when I was training, I was too involved in trying to qualify for an Olympics or trying to qualify for a Commonwealth Games, that your results and your wins on the way up, they're just like, yep, right, tick. Okay, I got that gold there, tick. I've got a silver. You don't enjoy those moments as much as you could. And I don't mean going out partying and enjoying those moments, but reflecting, thinking, oh, I did do a good job here. Oh, I've been working on that technique or that transition and it worked really good. And be proud of yourself for these little, it doesn't always just to have to be in the big highlights or the big tournaments, and enjoy that process all the way through, because it won't last forever. And they are your moments that will take you, that you'll look back on in your memories. So yeah, my advice is always like, if you've given the best of your abilities, and if not, and if you have, you can always be happy. If you haven't, well, then you need to go and sort that. So that's different for the next time, and enjoy those wins because you work hard for them, and they sometimes get forgotten about.
Steph, I want to say thank you very much for joining me on the show today. Really appreciate you sharing your story.
Good. No, thank you so much for having me.